Depth is confusing. You very well may have watched every video on it and still be slightly confused. But don't worry, here I'll explain it in a reasonable way that even a child of the youngest age could understand. Take your builds from this to this with just depth alone. So in this video, we're going to cover depth. What is it, how do you use it, and how do you use it properly? When I looked at videos on this topic, I struggled to understand what they were trying to say. Which is fair, depth is a hard concept to explain. But if you stick around until the end of this video, not only will you understand what depth is, but you'll also know how to transform your basic box house into something much more interesting with only depth. Are you ready? Good. I can't stress this enough. When I say add depth to a build, what I really mean is adding layers. Layers give your build feelings of depth and realism. So now, when we say depth, we mean layers. Depth is given by layers. There are two main questions I want to answer. What blocks do you use for depth, and how do we add depth to our builds? I'll show you how to do that, so feel free to pause and follow along. First, let's talk about what blocks we use to add depth to our builds. When adding layers, you can go about it in two ways. If you're working on a big build, you can use full blocks to add layers and shape. But if you're working on small builds, you should use blocks that aren't full blocks. Think stairs, slabs, trapdoors, even normal doors and fences. These blocks work well for adding depth because they're more customizable in your build, and you can add them to give layers while not covering up the block behind them. Now, believe it or not, you already have some depth in this build. After all, it's not totally flat. You have the door and glass panes, so you're already on the right path. Nice job. So now that you know depth comes from layers and you know what blocks to use for depth, how do we actually add this? Well, remember, we're not adding depth, we're adding layers to our build. So let's go over some things you can put on your builds to give them layers and therefore also depth. Building is really about small details, so adding these layers gives your build some depth and makes it look really nice. Now let's go over some examples and feel free to use these on your house too. So I'm starting off just by adding some non-full blocks to break up all this empty space. I'm adding little accessories to make this look a little better. Here I'm adding window shutters and flowers. I'm using these blocks because of their texture and color. And look at that, with just a bit of building, we've completely transformed the front of the build. But let's keep going and work on the other sides of the house. It was looking a little top heavy, so I got rid of the top logs. For these logs though, I made them look more bulky and strong with trapdoors and signs. Now pay attention here. I like using signs the most because they look good and also like armor for the build. At the back, I added some hay, and then if you check out this part, as soon as I add the stairs to the windows, this wall really takes shape. That's the power of a little depth. Then I redid it because I didn't like it. But for the next part, I tried trapdoors, but didn't like it, so I switched to spruce logs, and then... And look at that. We started with this, and with just a bit of adding things, we got this. That's layers. That's depth. So now that we've made it to the end, if this has helped, consider subscribing. Let me know in the comments any questions or requests that you have or want me to cover next. That should be it for now. I need a better intro. Bye.